Welcome to a fresh episode of the Restoration Today podcast. Hey, if you're liking what you hear, please leave us a review. We would really appreciate it. Hello there. Thank you for checking out another episode of the Restoration Today podcast. Today, I am very excited to be talking about some technology stuff, remote monitoring and how to make your jobs more efficient, help your techs out in the field, help people back in the office, all of that. So I am joined by Aaron Hynum, who is the business unit leader from Phoenix Restoration Equipment. I've known Aaron for a few years. He's done some writing and some articles and has a lot of expertise in kind of the drawing and technology area of the industry. So Aaron, thank you very much for joining me. I'm just going to toss it over to you and ask you to share a little bit about your background in the industry.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks for having me here. I've been with Thermistore for a little more than 11 years. And when I started, I wasn't with the Phoenix brand, but they had sent me to a Paul Davis drying school. I worked with Sonny Bass, and I thought I had this great idea, or even on that first drying school, that man, this data just needs to get where it needs to go without having to write it down and all this kind of stuff. But then I learned that people were already working on this, and that there were some Wi-Fi systems people were trying to, implement. But there were some struggles there. And then along the way, I wound up working for Phoenix, the Phoenix brand specifically, starting in 2012. And I started thinking about this again. And when we hit on the idea that temporary data situations like getting in your car, health devices, whatever, these were all based on Bluetooth. That's when I had an epiphany that, hey, this is what we need here. So that's kind of how this came to be. I've been working with Phoenix since 2012 and really been working on this idea for probably 5 years. And we now have a complete ecosystem. Of course, we'll keep improving it, but and happy to share everything I know about it.
So what does connected equipment mean? What does that look like from the restoration side of things? What does that mean?
So as far as connected equipment, it's Bluetooth-based job site data collection. And remote monitoring is an option, but not a mandatory part of the system. And then, so that's kind of the basics of connected equipment. And what it'll do is it'll give you a drying report and it'll do inventory tracking for you. But it's all based on this connected equipment, which is basically, it's called IoT, or Internet of Things. Mm-hmm. And this is just devices talking to the cloud or other devices and making people's lives hopefully easier. That's the idea.
What kind of equipment can fall into this connected equipment category?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, you really can have, today what we have is the equipment needed to do the drying job. So, dehumidifiers will be, data logging, temperature and relative humidity. You have moisture content sensing. You have standalone thermal hygrometers. And really, you can add any equipment into the ecosystem and make it connected by adding a thing called a dry tag, which is not just a Bluetooth tracking beacon. It also can sense the vibrations of the motor on equipment. And so therefore, it can know if it's on or off. So it can alert you if somebody has turned equipment off or you've lost power. So by using that, you can pretty much bring anything into the ecosystem.
Okay, so on the remote monitoring side of things, how much is that helping contractors today? Like, do you see there being a point when contractors can use this fully? Is there still a need for people to go to the field and also do some measurements? What does that look like?
Yeah, so the reason why we particularly like the fact that the remote monitoring is optional is because, there's always going to be a need to go to the drying job, move equipment around, see firsthand what's going on. So we're not advocating not going to the job. However, we also know there are times when it is either impractical or impossible. And some of those situations could be, let's say the job is 2 or 3 hours away and it just takes so long to go there. It could be that in a big event that you just don't have the manpower to physically go to every job because there's an overwhelming amount of work to be done. And then there's cases when you can't get in a building, or it's the weekend or a holiday and you don't want to have an employee have to do this on those particular days. So there are definitely reasons for it. We also feel there, it may be in the future that, it's understood that on, particular, maybe there are times when you don't have to go. The other thing about remote monitoring is it can give the business owner the opportunity, or a lead technician, whoever it is, the opportunity to see if they're remote monitoring all their jobs, they can see which jobs are proceeding as planned and which may not be proceeding as planned, and they could thereby route their technicians in an order that's most effective for them, rather than just simply heading out the door and you don't know what's going on a job. So it can definitely help in that regard as well.
How can it help with like the documentation and getting paid aspect of things?
Yeah, and that's a great question. So on the documentation and getting paid, the thing is we have verified data coming directly from sensors. We have verified equipment usage because these devices are talking to either your phone or the dry phone and going to our cloud. You also have verified equipment location through GPS coordinates, so that you can, rather than, somebody could push back and say, hey, we don't think you used the right equipment or something like that. And you can say, no, I definitely did. Here's the equipment I used. This is all coming directly from sensors. These are the GPS coordinates of the job. You can see they're on the job, and we know it was running. And beyond that, you also you have this built-in smart technology where if a technician didn't realize and they took a reading in defrost, the smart equipment is smart enough that we're data logging every 15 minutes. It will go find a good reading instead of when a dehumidifier is in defrost, because we've seen that where people don't catch it and then they send it to the adjuster, and the adjuster is like, why do you have you're putting moisture back in the structure, we're not going to pay for this. It's simply because the machine is in defrost. So those kind of things can definitely help a contractor to get paid.
There's been kind of a big push in the industry recently, and education from like Ken Larson and David Sweet and some others on stabilization and restorers understanding how to stabilize the job before they dry and whatever. So how can this also help with that phase of the job? We're not just in the drying phase, we're in the stabilization phase. How can it help with that?
Oh yeah, it's pretty much already designed for that, because your drying report in this case is a live link, so that you can view it from anywhere. And if you set the stabilization job up, you can make sure that you're staying within those parameters that you set, and you can do that remotely. You can be alerted if it goes outside of a parameter. So let's say I don't know, you set a parameter that said if it goes above relative humidity of 60, please notify me, and then you can take action accordingly. So it definitely should help out on the stabilization jobs as well.
Have you found contractors, we're in such this labor shortage time, right? Like this isn't necessarily going to completely take over for people, but have you found that this is really helping some of the companies that are really feeling squeezed on that technician level?
We're definitely that's definitely an interest, a point of interest for contractors, because when you look at one of the main areas that they're struggling with is not only employees, but employees with the skills necessary to do the job. So we're trying to help with both of those things. We're trying to allow you to do more with less with the technology, and we're also going to build smarts into the technology, like I described with taking a reading in defrost. We're looking to build in further smarts to help technicians. So the technology should help with the number of employees, and maybe some that are newer and don't have the knowledge yet. So it should help with both of those.
So on the inventory control and tracking side of things, what are some elements that companies should be looking for in a good tracking system? There are a lot of different options out there. So what makes up a good tracking and inventory system for the restoration space?
Yeah, so I mean, one of the things we heard right away is that if the inventory tracking system requires human interaction, that it often breaks down. So what we realized, when we first set out to make Drylink, we weren't actually setting out to make an inventory tracking system, but we could see the potential because with the Bluetooth technology, one dry phone can read thousands of beacons all at the same time. And if you had a Bluetooth receiving device in your vehicle, in your warehouse, and now you're going to have this technology on the job, we could really track your inventory and tell you where it's at. We can tell you what job it's on. We can tell you where it last was. There's so many things that we can do. And it's really, so it's like when you buy the Bluetooth beacon for Drylink, it's a dual functionality because on the job site, it helps you speed up your job setup. It notifies you if somebody turns off equipment, but that same device is also going to do your inventory tracking. So you're getting a lot of value. Other inventory tracking systems, they're usually standalone and they use them for many industries. So in our particular case, it's customized to this industry. Now, I'm not saying there's not other good systems out there, and there are I've seen other Bluetooth beacon-based systems out there, but I haven't seen one that doubles as also the Bluetooth device in the drying log. It's the drying report itself.
So, what are some of the innovations you see on the horizon? Then I know like Phoenix is always innovating, and there's always things coming in technology, especially. So what are some of the things you foresee coming maybe in 2022 and beyond?
Yeah, love to talk about that. In 2022, so for us, you'll see a release shortly that's adding rooms inside of drying chambers. And that is so that we could add the IICRC equipment recommendations as well, so that you'll see that on our app shortly. In the first half of next year, we're going to be working on adding the web portal, which will allow the functionality of the app, but kind of in a web portal where somebody at the office could make use of the same technology. So it's all interacting with our cloud. So that'll be going on. We also think that there could be a need for additional possible sensors. There could be, what if, you could have a particle counter that could be inside of an air scrubber. And in fact, you could get a particle depression reading if you had an inlet and outlet reading. So proving that HEPA air scrubbers on the job are doing what they're supposed to be doing, that's definitely a possibility. We've had requests for pressure sensors that would be Bluetooth that could show that if you need to keep a space under a negative pressure, that you could actually show that you have been doing that. So those are some technology features that we see in the future. Another one is, I have heard occasionally where people say, well, Bluetooth is limited to the distance of the range of Bluetooth. And they're right about that to some degree. I would say the ease of using Bluetooth far outweighs that. But today what you would do is if you have a very large job, you would just simply have to walk around the job. The phone is going to collect the data automatically and send it to our cloud. Or if you want to do remote monitoring, you have to have multiple dry phones to make sure in this big area that everything is being seen by the phone. Now, in the future, there is a thing called Bluetooth mesh networking. We haven't started work on this, but it's similar to, if you hear about mesh networking for your home, it's the same kind of idea. So what would happen is any one particular dehumidifier that's plugged in on the job could relay messages along the way, as long as they were, you're in Bluetooth range of something, your message would be able to get to the dry phone. So that's another thing that we're looking at for the future. Along with, our devices, we will be updating to Bluetooth 5, which gives you better range and lower power consumption. So that will be coming next year as well. So those are some of the things on the horizon. Along with, we're always developing new equipment. We're always working on stuff.
Of course. I want to dig into kind of your drying knowledge a little bit more. Like, you mentioned the S500, and this is such a basic question, but why is it so important to understand the S500 if you're a restorer and doing drying? There's a latest update just out and there are changes and stuff like that. So, how do you recommend also keeping up on the standards and making sure you're doing things accordingly?
Yeah, I mean, well, of course, it's always best that you have a copy of the standards and you understand the standards. But considering the struggles with labor currently, we know that some people are going to be in the market and not have that knowledge. So that's why we wanted to build that into the app. So the app is going to tell you, it's going to be the new standards in there where it's going to show you a range of air movers based on your inputs. Really the dehumidification is a minimum. So it's not telling you what exactly you need for that particular job, other than it's telling you this is the minimum dehumidification needed for that job. So, it's always best if you have the bandwidth to make sure you stay up and read the standards and understand them, because they're there for a reason. But if not, we'll try and help you in the app.
Do you have your equipment at some of the different academies, like drying academies and stuff like that in the industry? I know a lot of them try to have kind of all of the equipment so people can try it out. What are some of the academies you're involved in where people can see your equipment?
Pretty much, we try to work with every independent academy there is.
Yeah.
And what you're going to see is that we are working closely with them on introducing the Drylink equipment so that people can see, like, it's not for everybody. Not everybody is going to think this is the right fit for them, but to expose people to, like, hey, if I took readings manually, what does that look like? Oh, it took me 45 minutes for one day. If I take readings with this technology, it takes me like 1 second. So, somebody might say 45 minutes a day, that's 5 days, that's 3.75 hours. My labor rate is, let's say 25 an hour. And all of a sudden you can make the calculation and say, wait a minute, I could save like almost $100 on every single job. I am interested. So we're trying to work with the schools, and the schools, they like to be able to show like the latest things, and maybe other companies might try and show off whatever technologies they have, and that's fine. But we're working with the schools, and we think our product adds a lot of value. Also, just wanted to point out that in our ecosystem, just for other manufacturers out there, this is meant to be an open ecosystem, so that if you make a Bluetooth meter, you'd like to have that Drylink enabled, so that somebody using our system can buy your meter and the Bluetooth readings will work on our system. We're totally open to that and encourage that. Same thing with other software packages. Our system is it's not an enterprise system to run your whole company. We're specific to the drying report. And so we are integrating with other companies, many other companies. We're basically in talks with anybody you could probably think of, to make sure the data goes where it needs to go. We do have a drying report. We think it's fantastic. And a lot of people just use it as it is. But if you want that more robust enterprise system, that's where the integrations will come into play. We still feel like on the job site data collection, we feel we have the most user-friendly tool that saves a lot of time. We spent a lot of time trying to figure that part out.
Okay. All right. I love it. I love hearing about integrations in the industry and making things easier for restorers. There's a lot of options out there and a lot. So, all right. Aaron, yeah. Anything else that you think we should touch on? Anything else we've missed? This has been a lot of info and I love it. It's awesome.
Yeah, no, I guess I would just say that, the entire Phoenix sales team is now, like they lead with Drylink. So they're all familiar with it. So in the beginning, it's like somebody pretty much had to talk to me, but now it's really anybody in the Phoenix sales team can really explain this. And so, I guess I would just say if anybody is, interested out there, feel free to just reach out to the Phoenix sales team, because they'd be happy to talk to you about it. And we do have an ROI calculator on our website that helps people, where the contractor answers the questions. Like, we'll say, hey, does this seem like this would save you money? How much do you think it'll save you? And the calculator is just going to add it up and give you all the ROI calculations at the end, but it'll show you, does it make sense for you or not? And if not, then then I wouldn't do it. So that's the point of that tool, to add it up for you and see if it makes financial sense.
Perfect. Okay. Well, I look forward to sharing Phoenix news as it comes out in 2022. People can watch for it on the CNR magazine website, and I'm sure we'll be chatting soon, maybe seeing each other at trade shows and all that. So thank you very much for joining me. I appreciate it, and I hope you have an awesome day.
For more Restoration Today, visit our website, cnrmagazine.com, or find us wherever you get your favorite podcasts.